A sleek black car pulled up to the entrance of the Grand Hotel. The evening sky cast a warm glow on the building's polished windows, reflecting the city lights. The woman stepped out, dressed in a stylish but comfortable outfit. Nothing too flashy, but her confidence made it clear she was someone important. She took a deep breath, proud of how far she had come. This wasn't just any hotel. It was hers. Her heart swelled with a mix of excitement and nostalgia. Years of hard work, sleepless nights, and sacrifices had led to this moment. She built this place from the ground up, turning a rundown building into a luxurious destination. Every detail, from the marble floors to the artwork on the walls, was handpicked by her. She wasn't just the owner. She was the soul behind it all. Walking through the grand glass doors, she took in the lobby. It was exactly how she envisioned it. Elegant chandeliers sparkling like stars, the scent of fresh flowers in the air, and the faint sound of soft piano music playing in the background. Guests buzzed around, chatting and laughing. She smiled to herself, feeling the warmth of seeing her dream come to life. She didn't come with an entourage or a flashy entrance. She wanted to experience her hotel the way any guest would, quietly, unnoticed. But the moment she stepped inside, she felt something shift. It wasn't the welcoming, professional atmosphere she expected. Instead, she noticed a subtle, uncomfortable tension. A front desk clerk glanced at her, then quickly looked away. A bellboy, who had been chatting cheerfully with another guest, fell silent as she walked past. She noticed their eyes, cautious, skeptical. She brushed it off at first, thinking maybe she was overanalyzing. But as she moved toward the reception desk, the tension thickened. A tall, sharply dressed manager stepped in front of her path. His eyes narrowed slightly as he studied her from head to toe, his expression unreadable. "Can I help you?" he asked, his tone polite but distant. She nodded with a smile. "Yes, I'm here to check on things." The man tilted his head. "Check on things? Are you a guest here?" Her smile faltered. "Not exactly. I just want to look around." His brows furrowed. He glanced at the front desk clerk, then back at her. "I'm sorry, but this isn't a place for sightseeing. If you're not a guest, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Her heart skipped a beat. Did he really think she didn't belong here? She tried to stay calm. Maybe he was just doing his job. "I'm not sightseeing," she said evenly. "I'm here to check on how everything is running." The manager's expression hardened. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. This is a private establishment. If you're not a guest or staff, you can't stay here." The words stung more than she expected. She wasn't sure what hurt more, the fact that they assumed she didn't belong or how fast they dismissed her. She glanced around, hoping someone would recognize her. The staff she hired, the employees she treated like family. But no one stepped forward. Instead, they watched awkwardly from a distance, avoiding eye contact. A lump formed in her throat. She wanted to scream, "I built this place. This is my hotel." But something stopped her. A mix of shock, sadness, and disbelief rooted her in place. Her voice softened, barely above a whisper. "You really think I don't belong here?" The manager didn't flinch. His voice stayed firm, professional, but with an edge. "I'm asking you one last time. Please leave." Her heart pounded in her chest. She could feel her face growing hot, not from embarrassment, but from the overwhelming wave of emotions crashing over her. Anger, sadness, betrayal. She swallowed hard, blinking back the sting in her eyes. She didn't want to make a scene. Not yet. For a moment, she wondered if they would have treated her the same way if she looked different. If she wasn't a black woman standing alone in a luxury hotel. The thought hit her like a punch to the gut. She took a shaky breath, forcing herself to stay calm. She wasn't done yet, not even close. Her chest felt tight, but she kept her voice steady. "I'm telling you, I have a reason to be here." The manager's eyes didn't soften. He didn't ask for more information or even give her a chance to explain. He simply shook his head and waved over a security guard. The guard approached, his posture stiff and authoritative. His voice was low, but there was no mistaking the threat behind it. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to leave the property." Her stomach twisted. The humiliation burned deep. People were staring now. Guests lounging on the plush sofas, families checking in, a couple by the elevator who paused mid-conversation. Their eyes flickered with curiosity, judgment, and a hint of pity. She wasn't invisible anymore. She was a spectacle. Her voice trembled despite her efforts to stay composed. "You don't understand. I'm not trespassing." The manager didn't budge. His expression remained cold. "If you don't leave now, we'll have to escort you out." Her heart pounded in her ears. She couldn't believe this was happening. Not here, not in the very place she built with her own hands. The lobby, once a symbol of her success, now felt hostile and suffocating. The security guard stepped closer, his voice lower now but firm. "Let's not make this harder than it needs to be." Harder? How could it get any harder than this? Her throat tightened, the sting of unshed tears burning in her eyes. But she wouldn't cry. Not here. Not in front of them. Her mind raced, replaying every sacrifice she made to bring this hotel to life. The long nights, the countless rejections from banks, the backbreaking work to convince investors that she, a black woman, could run a luxury hotel in a competitive market. Every time someone doubted her, she proved them wrong. She fought for this. And now, here she was, being treated like a criminal, like she didn't deserve to be in the very space she created. The humiliation wasn't just about being kicked out. It was the look in their eyes, the assumption that she couldn't possibly be someone important, that she didn't belong. Her voice came out quieter than she intended, but the words carried weight. "Why do you assume I don't belong here?" The manager blinked, momentarily thrown off. He glanced at the guard, then back at her. "This isn't about that. We have policies. If you're not a guest or an employee, you can't stay." She stared at him, searching for a flicker of understanding. There was none, just impatience. "You didn't even ask who I am," she said softly, her voice trembling with restrained emotion. "You assumed." The manager's face twitched, but his voice remained flat. "I don't need to ask. You're not supposed to be here." The words hit like a slap. She felt her nails dig into her palms. She wanted to scream, to demand that he listen, but she knew it wouldn't matter. They weren't seeing her. They were seeing whatever version of her they had already decided on. She glanced around again, hoping, praying, that someone, anyone, would recognize her. A staff member, one of the executives she hired, someone to break this nightmare apart. But all she got were more stares. Some curious, some uncomfortable. A few whispered to each other, eyes flicking to her, then away. No one intervened. Her voice hardened. "This is my hotel." The words felt foreign in the tense, hostile air. The manager's expression flickered with disbelief, then condescension. He let out a short, humorless laugh. "Your hotel?" he repeated, his voice laced with sarcasm. "Right, ma'am. I think it's time you leave before we involve the authorities." The authorities. Her heart dropped. The thought of the police showing up of her, a black woman, standing here accused of trespassing, filled her with a cold, crawling dread. She didn't even want to imagine where that could lead. Her voice dropped, low and shaky. "You really believe I'm trespassing?" The manager's expression didn't waver. "I believe you're causing a disturbance." She took a shaky breath, her voice barely above a whisper. "I built this place." He didn't hear her, or maybe he didn't care. The guard stepped closer. "Ma'am, last chance. Please leave." Her hands trembled, every fiber of her being screamed to fight back, to shout the truth until they had no choice but to listen. But the weight of the stares, the humiliation, the anger, it pressed down on her chest like a heavy stone. For the first time in a long time, she felt small, helpless, like the girl she used to be, the one who people overlooked, doubted, and dismissed. She swallowed hard, forcing the tears back. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. Not yet. Her throat burned with the weight of unspoken words. She wanted to scream, to make them see her for who she truly was. But they didn't care. They had already decided what kind of person she was. The security guard stepped closer, his presence looming. Her heart pounded against her ribs, and her mind raced. Was this really happening? Was she really about to be thrown out of her own hotel, treated like an intruder in the place she built from the ground up? Before she could respond, a familiar voice cut through the tense silence. Ms. Carter. Her head snapped toward the sound, eyes wide with a mix of hope and desperation. It was Jacob, the hotel's assistant manager. He rushed over, his face shifting from confusion to panic as he took in the scene. "What's going on here?" he asked, his voice laced with urgency. He looked at the security guard, then at the manager, his brow furrowing. The manager's face twisted in irritation. "She's causing a disturbance. I asked her to leave." Jacob's eyes flicked to her, then back to the manager, his expression darkening. His voice dropped, low and tense. "Do you know who this is?" The manager scoffed. "No, but she's not a guest, and she refused to leave." Jacob's voice trembled with barely contained anger. "She's the owner of this hotel." The room seemed to freeze. The words hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. The manager blinked, his confident facade faltering. What?" Jacob stepped closer, his voice like ice. "This is Ms. Carter. She built this place. She owns this entire hotel." The color drained from the manager's face. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. The security guard took a small step back, his posture suddenly less intimidating. For a moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the distant hum of conversations from the other side of the lobby, blissfully unaware of the storm unfolding here. Her heart pounded, but this time it wasn't fear. It was something deeper. A fire that had been smothered was roaring back to life. The manager stumbled over his words. I didn't know. I thought." Her voice cut through him like a blade, steady, low, and sharp. "You thought what?" he stammered, searching for an excuse, but none came. The confidence that once coated his voice was gone, replaced with panic and shame. "I didn't realize you didn't say." Her eyes burned, but her voice didn't waver. "I shouldn't have to say. You never asked. You assumed." The weight of the moment pressed down on everyone in the room. The other staff, the guests watching from a distance. They were all silent now, hanging on to every word. She took a step closer to the manager, her voice quieter but no less powerful. "You looked at me and decided I didn't belong. You didn't ask who I was. You didn't even give me a chance." The manager's face crumpled, his voice barely a whisper. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know." Her voice stayed steady, though her throat ached from holding back the emotion. "You didn't want to know." For a long moment, no one spoke. The air was thick with tension, guilt, and the sting of truth. She glanced at Jacob, his eyes filled with a quiet understanding. He nodded once, a silent reassurance that he had her back. Her gaze returned to the manager, who stood frozen, shame plastered across his face. "You work for me?" she said softly, but the words carried the weight of a hammer. "Every person who walks through these doors deserves respect. No assumptions, no judgment. That's the standard I built this place on. And you broke it." His head dipped, his voice barely audible. I'm sorry." The apology felt hollow. Too late, too little. The damage was already done. Her chest ached with the weight of it all. The anger, the sadness, the humiliation. But underneath it all, a new resolve began to form. This wasn't just about her anymore. This was bigger than that. She wasn't just a black woman mistaken for someone who didn't belong. She was a black woman who built an empire, and she wasn't going to let anyone make her feel small in her own kingdom. Not anymore. The lobby was painfully silent now. The weight of the moment hung heavy in the air, pressing down on everyone. The manager stood frozen, his face pale and eyes wide with shock. The security guard shifted awkwardly, clearly uncomfortable but unsure of what to do. The guests who had been watching looked away quickly, pretending they weren't eavesdropping on a situation that had spiraled out of control. Her heart pounded in her chest, but it wasn't from fear or humiliation anymore. It was something deeper, something stronger. She felt the fire burning inside her, hotter than before. It wasn't just about what had happened to her. It was about the message this sent to every person who had ever been dismissed, ignored, or judged based on how they looked. She took a slow breath, steadying herself. The raw emotion still simmered beneath her skin, but now it wasn't shaking her voice. It was fueling it. "Do you know how many times I've been told I don't belong?" she asked softly, her voice cutting through the thick silence. She wasn't talking just to the manager anymore. She was speaking to everyone, the staff, the guests, the people who had watched in silence. "I've heard it my whole life. Too young, too inexperienced, too ambitious, and yes, too black." Her voice didn't tremble, even though her throat tightened with the weight of those words. "But I didn't let that stop me. I worked harder. I pushed through. I built this place from nothing. This hotel exists because I refused to believe I didn't belong." The manager swallowed hard, his head dipping lower. The security guard looked down at his feet, unable to meet her gaze. "You didn't see an owner when you looked at me," she continued, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "You saw someone who didn't fit your idea of who should walk through these doors. You saw someone who couldn't possibly be in charge. And that's the problem." Her voice didn't rise, but it didn't need to. It was powerful in its quiet strength. "People like me shouldn't have to prove we belong. We shouldn't have to announce who we are just to be treated with basic respect. You never even asked my name. You looked at me and decided I wasn't worth knowing." The manager blinked rapidly, his face crumpling with guilt. He looked like he wanted to say something. Maybe another apology, maybe an excuse, but the words never came. She wasn't interested in hearing it anyway. Not now. Her gaze swept across the room, landing on the staff watching from behind the front desk. Some of them looked ashamed. Others looked inspired. She held on to that, the ones who looked inspired, because this wasn't just about punishing one man for his mistake. It was about making sure this never happened again. "I built this hotel to be a place where everyone feels welcome," she said, her voice softer now but no less powerful. "A place where no one is judged by how they look or where they come from. That was my vision from day one, and I refuse to let anyone ruin that." Jacob stepped closer, his face tight with emotion. He didn't speak, but the look in his eyes said enough. He was with her. He always had been. She turned back to the manager one last time. "You were supposed to uphold that vision. You didn't." The manager nodded stiffly, his voice barely a whisper. "I understand." She didn't say anything else to him. There was nothing left to say. Instead, she turned to Jacob. "Make sure the staff gets retrained. Every single one of them. This will never happen again." Jacob nodded firmly. "Yes, ma'am." Her voice softened just a little. "And find me a new manager." The manager's face fell, but she didn't look back. She wasn't cruel, but she wasn't going to excuse what happened either. Some mistakes you couldn't come back from. She started to walk away, her step steady and sure, but then she stopped and turned around. Her eyes scanned the lobby, landing on the guests who were still awkwardly pretending not to watch. "For anyone wondering," she said, her voice clear and unwavering, "yes, I'm the owner, and I'm proud of that." The room stayed silent for a moment longer, and then, quietly, hesitantly, someone started to clap. It was a woman by the fireplace. Then another guest joined in, and another. The sound grew, echoing through the lobby, until the room was filled with applause. She didn't smile. Not yet. This wasn't about applause. This was about respect, the kind that didn't need to be earned. She nodded once, turned back around, and walked toward the elevator. Her head was held high. She wasn't just walking away from the lobby. She was walking toward something bigger, something better. Thanks for listening. For more, subscribe.